Welcome back into the Bangtan Universe wormhole. This video is part of the 7 series, in which we profile the 7 main characters of the Bangtan Universe one at a time. Each video is designed to give you an overview of the character's personality, motivations, struggles, and growth. To profile the 7 characters, we will need to discuss their storylines within the BU, so that means major spoilers ahead. Now let's take a look at HoSeok, the mood maker. Before we get into his story, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you won't miss out on our newest content. Now let's get started. As far as we know, HoSeok's only relative is, or was, his mother. But she abandoned him at an amusement park when he was very young. She gave him a candy bar, then told him to cover his eyes and count to 10. When HoSeok finished counting and uncovered his eyes, his mother was gone. He spent all his childhood and most of his teen years hoping that she'd come back, or that he'd find her again. And whenever he tried to count to 10, or heard someone else counting to 10, he would pass out because he had a superstitious fear that she'd never return if he finished counting. HoSeok was raised in an orphanage in Songju. He sees the other kids there as his brothers and sisters, and he calls the ladies who volunteer there his aunties. He had a good childhood despite the circumstances. The older boys took him to the orphanage roof to watch fireworks, and he discovered the joy of his life the first time he danced on stage at an orphanage retreat. Dancing makes HoSeok feel like he's really himself, no matter what's happening around him. HoSeok comes across as a cheerful, supportive person, but he claims to have narcolepsy and he takes a lot of pills. Sometimes he fakes an attack of narcolepsy in school to get out of class, but he really does pass out when he's stressed out and hears someone counting, or when he's afraid someone else he loves will abandon him. As for those pills, they're actually placebos. He's been diagnosed with Munchausen syndrome, a psychiatric condition that causes people to fake illness in order to receive attention. HoSeok's need for attention might stem from the loss of his mother and his fear of further abandonment. It also partially explains why he always acts cheerful and supportive towards his friends, but never shows them his sad or angry sides. When HoSeok ages out of the orphanage, he moves into a rooftop apartment and gets a part-time job at 2-Star Burger. Although his friends have fallen out of touch as a group, HoSeok still supports Taeyoung in secret, bringing him food from the burger joint, and he stays close to Jimin until that becomes impossible. One day, as the 2 boys are sitting at a bus stop, Jimin has a seizure and HoSeok takes him to the emergency room. There, he's confronted by Jimin's mother, who makes it clear that HoSeok has done his job and it's time for him to leave. So he does, and none of Jimin's friends see him again for 2 years. In May of year 22, HoSeok learns that his favorite auntie from the orphanage has cancer and needs surgery, and that the prognosis isn't good. He's so fearful that she might leave him that he passes out on a bridge and hits his head. At the hospital, he's diagnosed with a concussion, and he's held overnight for observation. Then, while he's in the hospital corridor, he sees a woman who looks like his mother, and he runs after her. She enters a stairwell, and he follows. But he's in such a rush to get to her that he trips and falls, and his ankle is shattered so badly that he'll never be able to dance again. HoSeok's fall in the stairwell is the tragedy that Seokjin must prevent with his time traveling. And it turns out that Jimin is the only one who can save HoSeok. Jimin is in the same hospital and in the same ward as he is, and only Jimin can reach him and take the right action to save him from falling. The HYYH Era shows the boys dealing with all the temptations, mistakes, and general confusion that comes with growing up. Each of the older boys, aside from Seokjin, becomes a mentor to one of the younger boys, and HoSeok mentors Taeyoung. We don't have any clear information about how the 2 of them interact, but the 2 Blood, Sweat, and Tears videos hint that Taeyoung's personal issues make him reluctant to mature any further. In the Love Yourself era, HoSeok and a friend from his orphanage start a dance club together. At first, the girl reminds him of his mother, although he isn't sure why. Then she earns a scholarship to a dance academy in the US, and HoSeok panics because he feels like she's going to abandon him. Fortunately, other events in this era help him realize that the girl isn't anything like his mother, and eventually he's able to congratulate her on her success. So let's back up and talk about those events that help him to grow up and accept her going away. One night in the dance studio, the girl is knocked unconscious, and HoSeok has to rush her to the hospital by carrying her on his back and running through a pouring rainstorm. He gets her there safely, but in the process he slips in a puddle and twists his ankle. Injuring that ankle seems to be part of HoSeok's destiny, since he had a much worse injury in the HYYH era. But the milder injury in the Love Yourself era gets worse over time because HoSeok can't bring himself to rest long enough for his ankle to heal. Eventually, he ends up in a cast, and his boss forces him to take a leave of absence. Since HoSeok is struggling with his emotions and needs a safe place to let off steam, he takes a train to another town and tries to stop being HoSeok from Songju. Before long, he meets a hugely talented dancer who suffered a career-ending injury, and this man helps HoSeok to remember what he lives for: dance. So he returns to Songju with a healing ankle and more love for himself. This is what gives him the strength to say goodbye to his dance partner. When Seokjin's girl is killed at the end of the Love Yourself era, the loop resets and all HoSeok's growth is lost. The struggles he faces in the Map of the Soul era are much worse than anything he's faced since early childhood. In this loop, HoSeok learns that the Songju Redevelopment Committee plans to demolish many of the older buildings in Songju, including his orphanage, and that the children and staff will be reassigned to orphanages in various other towns. And as we've said, these people are HoSeok's family, so he spends most of this era trying to get the redevelopment plans changed. First by protesting outside City Hall with the orphanage staff, and then by begging Seokjin to change his father's mind. Neither method works, and finally HoSeok sets out for another town again, although in this loop it isn't because he wants to process his feelings. It's because he can't stand to be in Songju any longer. But Namjoon visits him in this new place, and rather than trying to persuade HoSeok to return, he just sympathizes with him. That's enough to remind HoSeok how important his friends are and how important his old home is. He stays in the new town for a little while longer, resting and letting his ankle heal. Then he returns when Taeyoung texts him and says Seokjin needs his friend's help. HoSeok is part of the group who takes Seokjin to the storage room to recover his lost memories. And he's also there in Namjoon's trailer when Seokjin tells his friends about his time traveling and all he's done to save them. Hearing these words, HoSeok wants to tell Seokjin that he's sorry and also grateful. But he doesn't feel the words would do justice to his feelings. The important thing is that he feels a bit of closure. And he receives a bit more closure when Seokjin exposes the Redevelopment Committee's criminal activities, putting an end to all their demolition plans, including the one that would have destroyed the orphanage. This is certainly a happy ending for HoSeok, but you might notice that something seems to be missing. Almost everyone else took an active role in freeing Seokjin from the cat's spell, but all HoSeok did was beg Seokjin for help in vain and give him a brief headache. Why didn't he do more? After all, he's the most supportive, encouraging member of the friend group. But actually, that's the point. The BU materials barely hint at it, but HoSeok has a special role in the story of our 7 heroes. You have to read between the lines in the Notes Book 2 and compare various time loops and events. Only then will you realize that the orphanage was only scheduled to be demolished in this one loop. In all the prior loops, when Seokjin tried and failed to save Namjoon, the cat controlled Seokjin's father and at least some of the members of the Redevelopment Committee, but in this loop it also gained control over Seokjin, and it planned to use him to end the world. So what does that have to do with putting the orphanage on the demolition list? Why did the cat have to target HoSeok? Doesn't it have everything it needs now to ensure its victory? Well, apparently not. You see, HoSeok is the mood maker and the embodiment of hope within his friend group. He's also the only one who was able to save 2 of the others in the HYYH era. That makes him very special, and the cat knows he's special. You see, HoSeok is more than just the group's moon maker. He's actually their linchpin. He connects all the others and supports them in their different roles. And what happens if a linchpin fails? The cat must have been very confident of its success once it gained control of Seokjin, but it wanted to be certain, so it sabotaged the group's linchpin, separating him from the others and driving him to despair. or, well, almost to despair. HoSeok did run away from Songju, and that must have seemed like a huge victory to the cat. But Namjoon followed him and did exactly the right thing to keep him from staying there by not telling him to come back. And throughout the time when HoSeok was away, first at City Hall and then in that other town, his friends shouldered different parts of the load he'd carried. They took on new roles and encouraged one another, and the mechanism did not fail. They still beat the cat. HoSeok returned just in time to see Seokjin be freed. Now the group's linchpin is back. He's stronger and more confident than ever, and the group will need him more than ever in the next era of the BU. We predict that HoSeok will have a much larger and more active role when the cat takes its revenge on our heroes and they attempt a jailbreak.